Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another Kano Tryharding Modern. So today's list, I got a request from Mixim CZ to play a recent version of Tron 5.0. This is a drastic departure from my last list. So I appreciate the request, Mixim, and I will be playing this list. I'll be explaining some of the differences here, and we'll be doing some testing to see if this version is, in fact, better tuned for the current metagame. It might be. I'm definitely going to miss some of the free effects that we had in the previous version. I can tell you that right off the bat. However, this list is not entirely without merit or anything like that at all. I think this list is totally fine. 17 lands, first off, only 2 basics. I'm a little bit concerned because I have been running into more control decks lately that we're not going to have enough basics to fetch for Ghost Quarter Field of Ruin effects. So that's concern number one. Second thing is we're playing Relic over Surgical Extraction. So Relic is better in formats where threatening the grave all at once matters rather than answering a particular threat. So this is of similar utility against decks like Phoenix, although I think Surgical Extraction is a lot stronger. This is in a lot of ways better versus Dredge because you don't have to worry about what you're picking out of the grave, if it's the correct choice or not. You can either force them to under Dredge, and at which point race whatever they're going to do probably quite effectively, or in the event that they get a big Dredge off and get a whole bunch of threats, you can just empty the grave and then you win because you basically stopped their primary like Dredge chain kind of a thing. Not to mention it does cantrip, so it does help with the main deck consistency. It does cost mana. One of the reasons that I have not been playing Relic is simply because it's one of the things that gets prismatic endings quite frequently versus like the black-white Reanimator deck, which I've run into a few times, or the Esper Reanimator deck with Faithful Mending, I think is the card. This is a lot worse than Surgical Extraction in that matchup specifically, but that matchup's not common, so you know, Relic does still have some utility there. Glad to see that we still have some Warping Wails in the main deck. I think this card is a concession to a lot of the X1 decks, playing things like Ragavan, playing things like Dragon's Rage Channeler, that sort of stuff. This version's playing 3 Oblivion Stones in the main deck, as its board wipes of choice. It's still playing 2 Ugins, so we have 5 board wipes to play around with. The version that I was playing a lot less board wipes. It was playing a lot more All Is Dust effects. Oblivion Stone is a lot better versus the decks that play a lot of colorless threats or colorless artifacts. So if you run up against an Affinity deck, Oblivion Stone's a lot better, provided, of course, you can get to the mana to activate it. It is a lot better versus decks that play Blood Moon, play Alpine Moon, because you do not have to have Tron to play it. You just need 3 lands, and then you only need 5 lands to activate it. So it's a lot more reasonable than All Is Dust in that regard. Otherwise, it generally can only be played and activated in the same turn on turn 4+. Obviously, we still have Karn, we still have Wurmcoil Engine, we still have Big Karn. 2 Ugins is great. Sundering Titan in the main deck, as well as a Sundering Titan in the side, is kind of interesting, but that definitely helps the control matchup a lot. There's a Walking Ballista in the main deck. I think that's fine in a lot of matchups where you sack Sanctum because your opponent's low on life. Maybe they're playing a Death Shadow deck, or maybe you got in a couple of good swings, but they're just low, and you're looking for a way to end the game immediately. If you get Walking Ballista, you can just use your Tron mana to fireball your opponent out of the game very quickly. It also serves as another kill spell in the 2 mana slot at sorcery speed, albeit that can answer your Dragon's Rage Channelers, can answer your Ragavans. I'm happy to see the double Ulamog Kozilek still in this list. That is, I think, the correct top end for most of the Tron decks, most of the green Tron lists in the current metagame. I think that's the best setup you can have. Now, sideboard is quite different than what I'm used to playing with. They have 10 wishable spells. It's interesting that Chalice is still being played in Tron decks because historically it was very, very bad in green Tron, but times are concerning enough that we need to play it. This version is playing Wilt. I think playing Wilt is worse than playing Force of Vigor by far, but it does cycle, so it's not a direct comparison because it does have an alternate functionality to Force of Vigor, which is just straight up destruction and card disadvantage. Weather the Storm Very good versus aggro, very good versus the Phoenix decks. There's not really a Storm deck currently, but there are decks that do try and cast a ton of spells in one turn. You'll see that with any of the decks playing like Mishra's Bauble. Sometimes they'll play Mishra's Bauble a couple of times over and in the same turn, along with like a Bolt or, you know, a bunch of 1-mana spells, and then you can Weather the Storm and just gain enough advantage. You basically buy yourself like 3 turns if you cast Weather the Storm. The only time Weather the Storm is bad is it's not as good as it appears versus Burn. I would still bring it in versus Burn, but the problem is if your opponent has the opportunity to Skullcrack a Weather the Storm, it's unbelievably difficult to still win that game. Veil of Summer. Veil of Summer is just a hedge versus the control decks. It looks like our main deck is set up a lot better versus control decks. We have a lot more things that control deck would have to counter. So, like, you know, Oblivion Stone, it threatens their Planeswalkers, so they have to answer it. They have to answer all of our Karns. They have to answer our Wurmcoil Engines. They have to answer Karn and Ugin and Sundering Titan and Walking Ballista and Ulamog and Kozilek. Like, this version's incredibly threat dense, which is a huge merit for it. The version that I was playing is a lot less threat dense and a lot more reactive with some of the answers that we had. So generally proactive game plans have been better in Modern for the entire history of Modern. So there's a really good chance that in that regard, this deck will perform a lot better. Also, just like the ability to top deck another threat really, really is going to help, I think. It's, you know, you're not going to have as many times that you brick unless you're looking for a land and you can't find it. That's when this deck is going to struggle a little bit more than my list that I was playing previously. We have Tormod's Crypt as our Tormod's Crypt Grafdigger's Cage as our sideboard hate of choice. Tormod's Crypt is beneficial because if you play Karn, you can immediately get Crypt even if you only have 4 mana. You can immediately play Crypt. And then you can do the same thing that you would do with Relic and threaten their entire graveyard at once. It's actually quite powerful. I'm glad to see Cage is still in this list. Cage preventing your opponent from casting spells that are in the graveyard. You know, it's very important if you come up against a dredged opponent and they have something like Ancient Grudge as their artifact destruction for their like counter hate. If you play Cage, they can't cast Ancient Grudge unless they draw it, and that's a lot more difficult for them to accomplish. We still have Coating for the land destruction combo. We still have Trinisphere to back up Coating, and I'm very happy to see Trinisphere in this list. We still have Ensnaring Bridge for counter aggro to try and lock out the game. Skysovereign as a wishable threat. Generally, in that slot, I've played a Wurmcoil Engine. I've gotten some questions as to why I've not been playing Thragtusks or other people have not been playing Thragtusks, and honestly, Thragtusk is just too hard to cast in the current metagame. Even in this list, if you were to take a look, yeah, we have Sphere and Star, but like we only have 2 forests and a Yavimaya as our natural green sources. It's very difficult to actually generate green mana more than a once-off, and if you're generating once-off green mana, you want to be casting Stirrings and picking up a more powerful threat, or you want to be casting Scrying and assembling Tron. You generally do not want to just play Thragtusk, and in this version, not playing Thragtusk makes more sense because we're not playing Force of Vigor, so we don't need as many green spells just to have the option to pitch to Force. So Skysovereign, I'm fine with. It does do a pretty good job of just, you know, lightning bolting something for like 5 mana. It's a good combo with Karn because you can plus Karn to animate it, and it still gets its attack trigger because it still gains its other text like you would if you crewed it. Sundering Titan, happy to see Sundering Titan number 2, and 1 Sundering Titan's not enough. It might be a little bit overkill, but I do like it, and I think it is quite strong. And another Walking Ballista out of the side for the same Fireball reasons. And I was complaining recently that even in my list, I was like, maybe I should be running a Walking Ballista. So we're going to get a lot of good testing in. Mix'em, thank you for sending in the list, and thank you for your support on Patreon. He's my #1 donor on Patreon currently. Yeah, I really, really appreciate it. So I am going to take this into a competitive league, and I will see you guys in round 1. I am sorry again that this video is coming out late. This week is super, super hectic. This will likely be the only video I make this week, other than I may stream. I'm hoping to stream, which would be the day this video comes out. It would be the day after. It would be Wednesday, in the afternoons or evening, and I immediately after that I have to like go to sleep. I've got the next day off. I have to rest up and then drive 16 hours. Because I have to go officiate a wedding, and like I've been working on writing the ceremony. I've been working on, you know, talking to the bride and groom. They're good friends of mine, trying to help them out however I can. and, you know, trying to coordinate everything else has been really hectic. So I have another patron list, Francis Boyes. I have not forgotten you. If you're watching this video, it will be coming out next week. I will probably return to my schedule, be a lot less stressed. I have a lot less going on in my life right now, and so like once this wedding part is over, I have no big planned activities or anything like that after that, up until I move halfway across the country, which is later in the year. But you know, all of the current stressors will be out of the way. So yeah, man, I got other stuff I've got to do. Today I've got a dentist appointment today, and I got a doctor's appointment tomorrow, and just which would be the day you're seeing this. It's just gonna be a fun time, really. League matchmaking failed. Alright, hopefully here we go into round one. Alright, we'll be on the draw for round one. And I do apologize about the lack of content this month. I've been planning out things that I can do to improve the channel, and I have this is a Lurrus deck. If I am against Hammer, and I think there's a very non-zero chance that I am, I think this hand is bad because it's not fast enough. And if I'm against Lurrus Jund or anything like that that's playing hand hate, I also think this is a bad hand, because if I lead on Sphere, they'll just Thoughtseize and take Scrying, and if I lead on Map, they'll probably take Sphere, and then I can't cast Scrying, so I'm going to mulligan because we have a lot better 6s. This hand is also terrible, so I'm going to 5. I guess this hand has Ballista and Karn. It's really not great, though. Our 4s are a lot worse than our 5s, especially versus if this is an attrition like Lurrus deck, like Jund. We're already in an extreme disadvantage. So I've also had some people be like talking in a lot more negative tones in my comments lately, because I'm making a lot of punts, or, oh, it's a mill deck. All right. Well, I did not choose really the correct hand to keep versus mill. I am going to lead on Relic of Progenitus. I'm probably going to end up cycling Star next turn rather than playing Ballista. I want to be able to have Relic available versus a possible surgical extraction. I want to have it available versus like a Visions of Beyond. I don't want them to be able to completely reload or that sort of thing. Being able to exile the grave. In this regard, Relic is actually a lot better versus mill than it is versus than surgical is versus mill. Because the only time that like surgical is good versus mill is if you're surgicaling something that your opponent is surgicaling out of your deck, so you only take the copy out of the graveyard rather than letting them take the entire playset. Okay, so we played a land. We're going to play a Chromatic Star past the turn. But I've had a lot of people acting and talking to me in a lot more negative tones in the comments on YouTube lately, and I'm going to acknowledge that I've been making a lot of play mistakes lately, because that's just the way things are right now. I'm under a lot more stress, and I'm doing a lot of... Well, that's not fun. I'm doing a lot of things all at once, so I'm not on my best game. I can tell you that much. They got Kozilek, so we no longer have our mill protection. And if they Field of Ruin this Urza's Mind, we can no longer assemble Tron. So we are not in a really great place right now. But I'm not going to acknowledge or respond to you if you are just accusing me of being bad at this game, because I can assure you that I'm really not terrible at this game. I'm just prone to making some silly mistakes. But also recognize that absolutely playing 100% optimally is not the point of this channel. Or it is really not the point of this series. The series has been mainly watched and viewed by people who they want to see kind of how to play Tron, and have been using this as sort of like a tutorial series. And I get a lot of great feedback in that regard. But also, if I make a mistake that's so stupid that you never forget it, and you play Tron, then you should never make it, and you got better because of it. So kind of temper your expectations to what I'm doing. I'm not trying to be a pro Magic player. I'm not absolutely trying my best every single time that I do this. There's a lot more I could do to min-max, and it's just, you know, it's not what I'm trying to do. So we're going to bring in Veil of Summer and Wilt. Catching a Mesmeric Orb is not bad. With Tasha's Hideous Laughter being a sorcery, I actually think I do need Warping Wail. I can probably cut one Oblivion Stone. Well, Oblivion Stone... I don't want to cut too many threats, mainly because I'm still worried about surgical being a thing. And if they do end up surgicaling a threat because they don't get an opportunity to surgical a land, then we still need stuff in the deck to win the game with. I think I'm going to cut Ugin. Yeah, there's a lot more I could optimize if I was, playing a little bit more optimally. But you got to remember, I do this for fun. This is not my job. I'm not a consistent tryhard, I guess. But Kano, you're playing in a series called Kano Tryharding Modern. Well, then you don't really know me. Man, if you guys ever show up on stream, just like the number one thing... the freaking emote that I have is punt. The punt emote. The stupid blown up version of my face. It's I love so much. So, just temper your expectations. There's no reason to be negative. And if you... half the time, if you're like, Kano, was that a punt? Did you not notice? Yeah, it probably was a punt. And, for one reason or another. But I generally have a reason. Even if the line that I took was incorrect, I generally have a reason for taking it. Even if it was really bad. And sometimes that reason is, I just didn't think it all the way through. Now I can play Ballista for 1. I don't think... Is there a reason to play Ballista on 1, or should I just wait? Yeah, let's play it. We're not using this mana otherwise. The way that we win this game is by drawing our last Tron land before our opponent can interact. Worst case scenario is we see like a Spreading Seas here, and waiting to play Ballista, it doesn't really help any. Us having Kozilek in hand is actually really bad. Okay, they did not mill a power plant, so that's 7 cards we don't have to worry about drawing while trying to draw this power plant. Next turn we'll be playing Oblivion Stone. Unless, of course, we draw Power Plant, at which point we'll be playing Karn and interacting with our opponent's mana base. They're going to Surgical Karn the Great Creator, so they are playing Surgical, as anticipated. So this is exactly the scenario I was talking about during sideboarding. If your opponent does not get the opportunity to Surgical a Tron land, which is like the anti-Tron Wet Dream, right? They'll have to start Surgicaling threats, starting from the most likely to stop them from winning, which is generally like Karn Great Creator, but obviously they'll take whatever they can get a hold of. Waiting to do it until my draw step was definitely the play, unless we milled multiple threats, which I guess we did mill Karn Liberated, and my opponent has multiple Surgicals. If they do, they can take Karn Great Creator out of the graveyard, then wait till my draw step and Surgical Karn Liberated to guarantee a card loss out of my hand. But waiting until my draw step was basically free to do either of those things. So now they'll Surgical Karn Liberated if they've got it. Okay. Yeah, because there's not a lot that I can play on colorless mana at instant speed other than Warping Wail, which doesn't interact with Surgical Extraction at all. So I really think my opponent should have waited till my draw step there. Oh, the other thing I want to say to people that levy heavy criticisms against me, I tend to play better when I'm not talking. Because I'm sort of doing a show, if that makes sense. And if you've never tried to do a show and play well, it is much more difficult than you think. Things that become obvious in hindsight are not obvious in the moment. One line of thought, even if I'm trying to just spit out everything that comes to my head, is not necessarily correct. It increases the odds that you make a mistake, that sort of a thing. So, just be aware. Okay, so we're going to play Blast Zone and attack. Now, I could crack Blast Zone on 1 to kill Ruin Crab. I don't want to do that. I would rather attack, and if my opponent blocks, I can put a counter on Ballista and then ping Crab. That lets me keep my land. If they don't block... Okay, well, I was going to say if they don't block, I think I have to leave up Blast Zone. If they have an answer to Ballista here, that's fine. Okay, so we ended up taking the right line there, I feel. There was some merit to playing Tower, because then if I drew a power plant, I would be able to just, play Kozilek. But I actually think playing Karn is going to be better first. And if I happen to get a power plant, then Kozilek's coming down pretty quickly after that anyway. Dang. Okay. I could take mine, but I'm already holding a land I haven't played yet. So I'm going to take Relic of Progenitus just to stop a potential Surgical. I think my opponent right now is on a hand with multiple Tasha's Hideous Laughter. Or... Okay, so they had Karn Liberated. They had another Surgical. They were just waiting multiple turns to see. Now, that's dangerous for them, and I think it was a little bit greedy on their part. I think with them missing land drops, they kind of had to go for the greed play. But had we top-decked Power Plant, they wouldn't have had priority to stop us from playing Karn unless they had Drown in the Lock, which would also make sense for how they're playing, or what would have led them to keep a hand with only 2 lands in it. So either they have multiple cards they can't cast, multiple reactive cards where the situation hasn't come up for them to cast it, or so I have to either deny myself a Blast Zone activation this turn to Sylvan Scrying, or yeah, we still Sylvan Scrying. So they've probably got a couple of archive traps here, I imagine. If they cast Drown in the Lock, we Relic in response. So, Drown in the Lock has an intervening if clause in its text, meaning that it will not counter things that have a CMC higher than the number of cards in our graveyard. So we can empty the grave in response. In that regard, that was also better than Surgical. So Relic has multiple things that have benefited us here. Okay, so we get the double archive trap. Yeah, this is where not having Kozilek in our library really hurts. And that's just unfortunate luck, because I don't think I kept him in my opening hand. I think I drew him. And, you know, he's a singleton. He's like a 1 out of 60 chance to draw. Or he's like a 1 out of 50 chance to draw in the early game-ish, on any particular draw. Okay, Visions of Beyond. Opponent just completely reloads. So if I top deck an Ulamog, which I haven't seen yet. Oh, there's one left in the deck. Okay, never mind. We're just dead. I can't win in a single turn, I don't think. Last card in deck's an Ulamog, which I'm top decking. So I can activate Blast Zone, put 2 counters on Ballista, swing 9, ping them for 3, and kill them. Wow, sick. Ballista's doing work. And that's math, folks. The old 0 cards left in deck victory. We even got a little bit unlucky there with the multiple archive traps while having while having Kozilek in hand. Do we want to adjust for that? I think Chalice on 1 hurts us more than it hurts them, so I'm not gonna bring that in. I would save that as a situational wish type deal. So yeah, this version is pretty much automatically better than my version versus Mill, at least. Okay, I cannot keep a 0 land hand. We have no green source. We do have 2/3 of Tron. My opponent kept 7, which does not inspire confidence. Do we try to go down to 5 to get, like, Tron plus threat versus a Mill opponent that kept 7 cards that is on the play? A green source gets us to Scrying or Stirrings. I'm going to go to 5. Okay, I actually do like this a little better. I'm going to put both... Am I going to put both Karns back? I'm going to put this map back. Now, 1 land hand is risky, but I like this as a... I like this because there's more interaction. We have access to green mana early than the hand of 6. This might end up being a mistake, but having access to Relic means we're not going to get Surgicaled early. At least in theory, we can, you know, stop it from happening. I'm going to play it out first, which will also help protect us from Drown in the Lock. Ideally, we top deck a land here, and a Tron land we don't have. Then we can play out, like, Sphere, crack it, and that's interesting that they're playing Soul Guide Lantern. We play Sphere, crack it for green, and get, like, the 3rd Tron land. Okay. So, unfortunately, we have no second land. We're basically going to save Relic tap for targeting ourselves in the event that we get Surgical, because then we can exile the card that they're trying to Surgical. It's kind of interesting to see that they're playing Soul Guide Lantern versus us. I mean, it has utility with Luris that they can keep cycling it again, but... So opponent cycles Fractured Sanity, milling Urza's Mine. Okay. So we have to be careful about Surgical. So we can't frivolously tap Relic here. Cycle Sphere for green. Ancient Stirrings. Power plant number 2 is not what I wanted to see. I was hoping for a mine or a tower. Play out Star. Pass the turn. Okay. Opponent passes. We untap. We draw a second Relic. Cycle Star for green. Get a map. Cast Stirrings. I might get Drown in the Locked here. Okay, we get Tower. Put that to the bottom. Play Tower. Play Relic number 2. Okay. We're going to be disciplined about that Relic, and I'm not going to play Expedition Map on the off chance my opponent has 2 Surgical Extractions. Because if I play the map, then I don't have Relic tap and Relic activate. Okay, opponent has another Drown in the Lock. Now I could crack Relic in response, but that would pretty much guarantee the Surgical. Yeah. And if we proactively activate Relic to try and exile Urza's Mine, and they have 2 Surgicals, then they still get to Surgical Urza's Mine. So we can't do anything right now. We have to be patient. And if they have 3 Surgicals, which is not likely but possible, then we're just done. Or an Extirpate, really. So they play the 3rd land. We draw Sanctum. Play Sanctum. I think we have to play Karn. If they have 2 Surgicals now, they're going to get us, but... They cycle Soul Guide Lantern. So I think I'm actually going to wish for Crypt here as the backup plan. Crypt also saves us from a Drown in the Lock. Potentially. So they're going to be able to force us to search our library, as well as take us off of Tron here. Well, if they wait, then we're going to get to do this. I am not going to sack Sanctum. Opponent is going to field our tower. We have to get a forest. They're going to Visions of Beyond. It's just a cantrip, so we're not doing anything about that. They Archive Trap us. We will not sack Sanctum. Exile some lands. Land an Ulamog. Now I can wish with Karn Great Creator. I could get Chalice and put it on 0. I don't think that helps. I could get Pithing Needle and I could name Field of Ruin. Or I could get Grafdigger's Cage. And I don't think Grafdigger's Cage helps. I think what I'm going to do is Pithing Needle Field of Ruin. You know what? Let me look up a deck list really quick. So, activated abilities that we could name. We could name Fractured Sanity for the cycling, I believe. Not sure that that's good. We can name Field of Ruin. We could name Obero, possibly a Kokoro, Ghost Quarter. Oh gosh, it's not even actually that good. So I'm going to get Trinisphere, actually. Okay. So opponent's like best bet to kill us is land Hail Mary Tasha's Hideous Laughter, but I'm pretty sure we have enough CMC left in the deck. They play a Ruin Crab. They play a Swamp. They mill us for 3. And then they pass. We untap and draw a Power Plant. So play Power Plant. Go to combat. Attack for 10. And half of their remaining library. Opponent does not block. Uptick Karn. Cast Trinisphere. And I think if they drown, we exile our own grave here. And I'm going to use Tormod's Crypt to do it. Because I don't want to draw any more cards because Kozilek is still in our deck. And if I crack Relic to do that, then there's a good chance that I could actually draw Kozilek. But like now their best bet to mill us enough to win is like fetch land, or Field of Ruin Archive Trap. Or no, it's Fetchland Tasha's Hideous Laughter. That could potentially kill us, but they'll only be able to cast one spell this turn. Okay. Let's hope we got enough. They did not kill us. We untap. We draw Karn Great Creator. Currently have access to 6 mana. I could use 3 of it to Sylvan Scrying for a tower, and then I would have access to 9 mana. That would allow me to play Karn, and it would allow me to play Liquimetal Coating. And I could blow up a land. Actually, I can just get Sundering Titan, and then they can't cast anything. So if they had an instant speed way to force us to draw enough cards, they could kill us. But they don't. Alright, we got there. It was a hard-fought victory for us, but we did get there. So, awesome. I'll see you guys in round 2. Alright. So this is a mulligan. We are on the play, though, which is good. Alright. I'm going to try keeping this, and I'm going to put back Ulamog. We might have some better 5s, but the redraw off of Sphere potentially into a second Tron land is what I'm hoping for here. If not, we can just play Yavimaya and cast Sylvan Scrying. A blue Aether Vial deck. So this is either the blue-white Humans deck that I saw recently, or it is the Merfolk deck. And if it's Merfolk, we could be in a little bit of trouble, potentially. I'm going to go for the double Chromatic Sphere play here, because if I do draw a second Tron land, then I'll know more accurately what I need to Sylvan Scrying for. I'm not sure that Relic is going to be anything but a cantrip here. The good news is, versus any creature deck... Okay, this is probably Humans. Versus any creature deck, Oblivion Stone is going to be good. Kite Sail, Freebooter. So they can take O-Stone, Scrying, or Karn. They take Karn. We untap and draw Wurmcoil Engine. Play Blast Zone, or play Blast Zone and play Oblivion Stone. Pass the turn. Next turn we can Scrying, we can crack Relic just to cycle. It's unlikely we're going to need to exile the Grave at any particular point. We're just going to need to draw cards here. An opponent's start has been kind of slow. If you had Champion, you should have vialed it in before you played Freebooter. Because you just robbed yourself of at least a single point of damage. Opponent plays Thalia. Okay. They're going to hit us for 3. We untap. We draw Ballista. So we're going to play a 3-mana Scrying here. Get an Urza's Mine. Play the Mine. Pass the turn. We're going to end up sacking Relic here. And hoping to draw a land. Well, if they've got like 3 Thalia's Lieutenants, we probably would be dead, but I don't think we're guaranteed dead here. If I was less confident in my ability to survive, I think I would have played Walking Ballista instead, but we needed to make land drops if we actually wanted to win this game, not just prolong the inevitable. So that's another thing that I feel gets pretty unfairly criticized, because people put this focus on, like, making it to the next turn, making it to the next turn. You could have made it to the next turn if you did this. And it's like, yeah, I could have, but just making it to the next turn does not guarantee that you're going to win, right? Sometimes you have to take lines that are suboptimal, even in the short term, even when there's not a lot of time left on the clock, to actually win the game. And making that land drop now allows me to... Like, I basically am going to have to crack Oblivion Stone to live. That's what this has come down to. That is, if I'm not just dead here. I didn't do the math. Okay, so that single point of damage from Champion of Perish actually hasn't mattered, but there was a decent chance that it would have. So sack Relic. We get 2 draws at a land here, and we need a land to win. Didn't find it. Is there anything I can do? Technically there is. So, oh, wait a minute. Why does this cost? Oh, it costs, I see. It costs 2. For some reason I thought it costed 3. And I was like, why does it cost 3? If we can cycle this into the last Tron land, we can win, but we didn't find it. So, I think I played that game correctly. Yeah, we weren't getting there. Okay, so versus Humans, which is a deck I haven't played against in a while. Let me look up a Humans deck list really quick. So out of the sideboard, opponent will have Alpine Moon. They will have Magus of the Moon, which is actually a problem. They will have Lavinia Azorius Renegade, at least if they're playing the most recent 5-0 list. So we do need Wilt 100%. Chalice has some utility, but I think it still ends up hurting us more than it helps. Weather the Storm is less good against this opponent because they're going to be playing spells off of Aether Vial. They're not necessarily going to be casting them. And they're not a deck that does damage in bursts. They do damage in an accruing amount. So they'll do like 2 damage on turn 2, 5 damage on turn 3, 8 damage on turn 4, that sort of thing. And that's not the kind of deck that Weather the Storm is good against. Now, you can still make an argument for bringing it in if you have cards that are worse than it to have in your main deck. And I don't think I'm going to need Kozilek, but I'm already still over my limit of cards. And I think I'm going to cut a Relic of Progenitus. I think I would rather keep the cycle of Relic of Progenitus in the main deck over Weather the Storm. And I could bring in Walking Ballista number 2, but I might need it as a wish target. And I already have one in the main deck. Magus of the Moon is what I am most concerned about playing against here. All right, well, we've got turn 3 Tron, but nothing to play off of it. I am going to keep this. We have 4 lands, and we have an Oblivion Stone, so even if we do get mooned, we have the Oblivion Stones. And that is an answer to Magus of the Moon. So now if we get freebootered, and we probably will, because they never not have it. Like, you know. All right, they lead on Aether Vial, which is a slightly slower start. We could wilt that. Not this turn, though. We get an Ancient Stirrings. Let's play a Power Plant, and I think we'll just go for Tron here. So if they play Freebooter, they have this awkward decision of whether or not to take Oblivion Stone or Chromatic Star. If they take Star, they keep us off of Wilt Stirrings, but we could still cycle Wilt, and then we play Oblivion Stone, and then they have to have, like, Deputy of Detention or something like that to answer that. And they do play Deputy of Detention. I think it's gotta be Oblivion Stone here. Okay, they take Oblivion Stone. Let's go get Tower. And hope for a good top deck. I mean, Star, maybe. So, play Star. Cycle for green. Get another Tower. Ancient Stirring. So I can take Wurmcoil, but I can't play it, and I could get Freebootered again. Or I can take Warping Wail and kill Freebooter, and get back my Oblivion Stone, and then replay that immediately, and I think that's the play we're on here. Because with it on board, it's a lot harder for them to answer. Because they can't Meddling Mage it, they can't Freebooter it. It boils down to, like, they have to play Deputy of Detention, or I was pretty sure there was another card they could play that would answer it while on board. They could, like, Moon to take us off of mana, but they don't directly interact with our mana base. Like, they're not, like, blowing up lands or anything like that. And unless they have a Pillage or, like... I'm pretty sure there's a... What is that effect? Like, Vandal that can kill artifacts? So it's looking like a Mantis Rider here. Okay. Any threat, and we're good. Any threat, and we're good. Relic is not a threat. So I'm going to play Relic and immediately cycle it. Okay. The reason that I did that, and the reason that I tapped the way I did for it, is because I want to be able to keep up Oblivion Stone activation. I'm going to play Chromatic Star, and I'm going to play Expedition Map. I'm not going to cycle Chromatic Star, though. If I activate Oblivion Stone, I at least get to draw a card off of Star. Okay, opponent does not vial anything in. I keep Vial on 2. I guess they could have, like, a Pithing Needle or a Sorceress Spyglass effect. That wouldn't be unreasonable for their deck to play. Some versions of Humans have even played, like, 3 mana Teferi, which is kind of disgusting in my opinion, but... I'm not going to activate Map here because I don't want to lose my ability to activate O-Stone at any given time. Okay, so play Chromatic Sphere. Cycle for green. Ooh, that doesn't really help. It's a big nasty threat, but it doesn't do anything. It's just kind of awkward. I could activate Map, get a Yavimaya, and blow up some lands that way. I have just enough mana to do that. Okay, so they're giving me the option. I can either deny them a card draw by taking out Horizon Canopy, or I can take out one of their rainbow lands. And honestly, I'm going to take out a Rainbow Land, because if they sack mana, they're probably going to lose. Now if I crack Oblivion Stone, I can take out another land in addition to their Aether Vial. Okay, Thalia's Lieutenant. So the concern is they have multiple like Anthem creatures to build a board up and a way to deal with Oblivion Stone. That's the concern with the play that I made. Okay. File another Mantis Rider, so it'll be a big swing here. We're going to take half of our life total in damage. We draw another Tron land. Let's go ahead and cycle to see what we draw. Another Wilt. In that regard, let's go ahead and cycle one. Man, do we give up on the Wilt then? And just cycle the last one away? I think I have to at this point. Yeah, we have to activate Oblivion Stone now. Attacking doesn't really help. I think we just activate Stone. How much mana do we have? Enough to activate Stone and still play Karn? That's pretty sick. Blow up the board. Take out a land. Play Karn. And now we're going to wish for Walking Ballista, I think. If my opponent doesn't play a land, I'm going to go get Trinisphere. But I think we've got him this game. I'm trying to think of what their best possible play is, and if it would actually be a threat. Yeah, they don't have it. Okay. Alright, so we will have to get a little bit lucky, I think, going into Game 3, but I'm not going to make any other adjustments. Okay, this is not a keepable Game 3 hand. This, however, is. And we'll be putting back... you know what? Star has more utility than Relic here. My brain did not evaluate that on the first pass. Okay, opponent did keep a hand of 7. So we'll lead on map. This is turn 3 Tron, except in the event of a Naturalize, Alpine Moon, or Pithing Needle, I guess? I don't know. Second Aether Vial, okay. We draw a Sphere, play a Tower, pass the turn. Man, if we get the last piece of Tron and opponent doesn't have like a way to stop us, and we top deck like a Karn Great Creator, this game is over. Karn Liberated is not as good versus my opponent's deck. Damping Sphere. Okay. So I can either go wish for the last Tron land, or I can wish for a Blast Zone. Which is better? I think I still gotta go Tron land. Okay, if they have a Vile Freebooter, I was gonna say that might be a problem. So we play the Power Plant. And I think we have to play the O-Stone. I mean, the concern is still that they have like a Deputy of Detention or something, but they're running out of cards in hand. I think they kept this hand off the strength of Damping Sphere. They have 2 Vials and they had 2 sack lands, so like the idea was they would just sack the lands to recoup the cards they were expending to set up with. If we top deck a land, we can use Warping Wail in the produce mana mode on their end step. And then they might be in trouble. Okay, they have Deputy of Detention. We can Warping Wail to get rid of that. They play Sanctum Prelate. They choose 3. Does this cast? Exile a non-land permanent until it leaves the battlefield. Okay. We got a Wurmcoil Engine. I think we Sphere into Ancient Stirrings trying to hit a land. Because we need to be making land drops. If I drew a land there, I would have just Warping Wailed. Okay. Take Yavimaya. Play Yavimaya. Pass the turn. Opponent has another 2-drop to Violin. It is a Thalia's Lieutenant. Deputy of Detention is not a human. It is a Vidalcan, so it does not gain a 1/1 counter. This creature is much harder for them to put 1/1 counters on, or to change its power, so Warping Wail is still going to be extremely valuable. We basically just have to not die for a couple of turns, and they are running out of cards in hand, but they are producing a very quick clock. And they're going to sack 2 lands next turn. Or they're going to sack 2 lands on our end step because we played Yavimaya and their Ziggurats can now tap for green mana. Get a Blast Zone. Play Blast Zone. Play Chromatic Star. Pass the turn. We have to Warping Wail on their turn. Because if we don't, the potential exists for them to just play a second Deputy of Detention after the fact. They play Noble, which doesn't... Okay, it increases their power by 1. They violin a 3-drop. It is another Mantis Rider. Oh, crap. Does that kill me? I think that kills me. Maybe I had to activate Blast Zone to kill their Aether Vials, but we were dead in 2 swings anyway. So, if we had activated Blast Zone, we would have spent all of our mana, we would have drawn a card, and we would have stopped them from activating Vial, which means they would have cast a Noble Hierarch, and we would have taken 9 damage. But then we would have only had 2 life, 4 lands, and still no Oblivion Stone. Yeah, I think we made the right choice, but I think we just got unlucky. Hang on. 3, 6, 10, 13, 14. I can make a 1/1 and block and die exactly. So we'll draw a card. Yeah. Yep, I had it. Well, that was really, really close. But, see you guys in round 3. Alright. I think we mulligan this. It is 2/3 of Tron, but we don't have a 7-mana threat, or Karn Great Creator, and we have no consistency tools we can cast, so we have a lot better 6s than that. This is not one of them, but we have better 5s than this. And we have better 5s than we have of the initial 7. Let's just hope we find one, right? I mean, this isn't one of them either. And so just about any 4 is better than a no-land 5. Bam, got him. Look at that. I couldn't have picked a better 4-card hand except maybe all 3 Tron lands and Karn. Alright, Expedition Map, let's go. Alright, opponent leads on Stomping Ground into Suspend Crashing Footfalls. Okay, let's go get a Power Plant. Pass the turn. So depends on what my opponent plays here, which threat we should play. Karn Great Creator is the better of our 2 threats. Especially if they miss a land drop. I'm not sure why they would miss a land drop. Now, if they have an ice to tap our land, that is unfortunate. But there's literally nothing we can do about that if that's the case. Actual Time Walk. Play Power Plant, pass the turn. Crashing Footfalls down to 2. Okay, I've got to hope that they don't have a Cascade or a Force here, basically. I mean, if they ice the tower or something, that's probably fine. Okay. I mean, the odds that they have the first Force Negation is practically 100%. This doesn't come off until next turn. If I play Karn, I have to wish for Ensnaring Bridge first, which means... I have to wish for Ensnaring Bridge first because they either have Force Negation or Violent Outburst. The odds of them having one of those 2 cards is practically 100%. And if they have Violent Outburst, they're going to get Rhinos onto the board and just kill Karn, and then Karn does nothing. And then their other one comes off suspend. Or I play Karn Liberated, which I think plays better around the Rhinos, and I think plays better around Force Negation. So we're playing a Forest, playing out a Sphere. I'm not going to sack it yet, because if I need to get a Ensnaring Bridge, I want to have as few cards in hand as possible. So we got to play Karn Liberated. Okay. Now the question is, do we downtick or uptick? If we uptick, he survives them cascading into Rhinos. If we downtick, potentially we stop him from cascading. If he had a cascade spell that wasn't Violent Outburst, he would have used it at sorcery speed 100% of the time. And if he didn't have a counter spell, that tells me he either has a Violent Outburst or a terrible hand that I don't know why he would keep. So I'm actually going to uptick on my opponent here. They give us a Forest. Opponent cracks Wooded Foothills, shocks the Steam Vents. I mean, they could have like a Brazen Borrower too, I guess, but... Hey! Violent Outburst! And I think I played around it the best that I could. Because, like, the alternative, like, the bridge play, like, plays into Brazen Borrower, Unsummon, it plays into Ingot Chewer, if they happen to be main decking that for some reason, it plays into Force Negation, it plays into so many other things. I think I made the best decision I could have. And if they have another Violent Outburst here, they could actually kill Karn, but then they have a bunch of tokens on board. So they're going to attack Karn down to 2. The third Crashing Footfalls. Karn down. We untap. Hey, there's an idea. To cycle for green, we get a Walking Ballista, play Oblivion Stone. Now we can answer all the rhinos. Unless they have Force. Oh my god. What a disciplined player. Oh. I'm going to take 16 damage next turn. And if I play Karn, he's going to die. We don't want that to happen. We can play him and Bridge at the same time. So we gotta play Walking Ballista. My apologies, I just got an important text for stuff related to the wedding. And it is long, so I may not be playing optimally here, because I've got to kind of be tuned into this. So depending on how this... I'm going to try and get to a point where I can like kind of pause and handle this really quick, because we don't need a lot of time generally to play against this deck. The main concern is my opponent has a second Force Negation or has a Brazen Borrower. That's the main issue here that we're going to have to try and deal with. Okay, the fourth Crashing Footfalls. We untap. Draw a Karn. Play Karn. Wish. Get Bridge. Ensnaring Bridge. Play Bridge. Pass the turn. Do they have it? Opponent cracks a Misty. Get the Steam Vents tapped. They play a land. Okay, so we need to wish for Sundering Titan now, because we need to basically eliminate their mana base. Play Power Plant. Play Sundering Titan. Take out Mountain, Island, Forest. Pass the turn. Opponent plays a Mountain. Plays a Seasoned Pyromancer to draw 2 cards. If we could top deck our other Sundering Titan, that'd be great. I mean, Ugin works too. It's just, you know, so we don't die instantly to them having something. To play Ugin. -3. Uptick Karn. Pass the turn. This way, even if they do have a Brazen Borrower, we're not instantaneously dead. Alright, we untap. We draw a Relic. Uptick on our opponent. Let's go ahead and wish. Get a Trinisphere. Play the Trinisphere. Play Karn. Yeah, they can't have a counter spell. And then we get a Liquimetal Coating for 3 mana. So they have to have an unsummon here. Basically, the only way we could possibly die is if I fell asleep, my opponent unsummoned our Ensnaring Bridge. No, that doesn't even work. I was going to say, like, they have to get a Brazen Borrower on field and then stomp us, or stomp us twice. So next turn, we can guaranteed do enough damage to just kill them between Ballista and... Alright, so they are going to destroy our Liquimetal Coating and deal 2 damage to us. So if they have a Stomp, if they have 2 more points of burn, then we're going to lose. And maybe I wasn't being aggressive enough with the Walking Ballista, but like I said, I'm extremely distracted right now. Okay, they have the damage. My apologies. I'm going to bring in Veil of Summer for this, as well as the Wilts. And I'm going to drop Wurmcoil, Kozilek, and a Relic. This is a matchup where I wish I had Surgical over Relic. Alright. That has been temporarily dealt with, hopefully. I mean, Warping Wail helps, but we've got better 6s in that hand. This is not one of them. This will work as a 5. It's not great, though. So, yeah. My version is much better against the deck that we're currently playing. The version with the Force of Vigors and Surgical Extractions, because if you surgically extract Crashing Footfalls, this deck becomes this horrible, horrible teamer tempo deck that basically doesn't have a game plan except hitting you with shocks and overcosted beaters. And it's like playing a standard deck versus Tron at that point. And like with by maxing out on Warping Wails, you maximize your chance of countering a Crashing Footfalls. And if you counter a single Crashing Footfalls, you'll probably have a Surgical to deal with all of them. So like unless your opponent has one on Suspend, then they're probably not going to resolve one. I will say that regardless of what version you play against this type of deck, I gotta put 2 cards back, so we're gonna put back Sanctum of Ugin and Urza's Mine. Regardless of what version of Tron you play against this Temur Footfalls deck, there is a possibility that they just have everything they possibly need to beat you. Like, there's a non-zero chance of that happening. So if somebody wants to go back and actually do the math on whether or not I could have Walking Ballisted my opponent to death, it's possible. I was playing the first game too safely. But this opponent exiles a Force of Negation, 2 Gemstone Caverns, play an Urza's Mine, play an Expedition Map, pass the turn. Okay, they're going to crack Wooded Foothills. Probably going to ice here, which stops us from getting Tron on turn 3. Oh, they don't have it. They have Force of Vigor instead, pitching a Violent Outburst. Okay, that is unfortunate. We at least draw another land. Unfortunately, it's not a tower. If we top-decked a tower there and still top-decked a threat, that would be the Tron way to win this game. Gonna cracks Misty. If this is a Shardless agent, we need tower to win. Okay. Opponent puts 10 power on the board. Play Power Plant, play Map. Go get tower. Pass the turn. I did it at sorcery speed, basically because I just don't want to deal with the rest of this nonsense. I'm not sure that it's actually correct, but I kind of just want this match to be over. I don't think it's likely they have like a Krosan grip or something like that, but you never know. Okay, opponent plays a Seasoned Pyromancer and draws 2 new cards. Like, we have to Oblivion Stone and then draw a threat. That is not a threat. Play Tower, play Stone. We also have to dodge Force Negation. Maybe I should have brought in Chalice of the Void to drop on 0. I've done that in other lists that play a Singleton in the side. That may actually have been reasonable, because we were on the play for game 2, I think. Yeah, we were on the play for game 2. I should have done that. One plays a 5th land. If they have another Cascader, we basically have to top deck Ulamog. Okay, that is not a Cascader, that is a Blood Moon. Thankfully, that hurts our opponent pretty severely, because they only have red and blue mana now. And that doesn't really do anything. Okay. So we can forest, Sylvan Scrying, get a forest. So we're not going to be hurting for mana. If we can just top deck a Karn, like, that's enough. Okay, opponent top decks a forest like a god, because they only play like 1 or 2 basics. Okay, we draw Ancient Stirrings. We Ancient Stirrings. Actually, not playing out that other forest was a mistake. Get Karn, Great Creator, rest of the bottom. Because if they did have a Force in the game, well, they don't have any cards in hand actually, so I guess it doesn't matter. Play Karn. Wish with Karn. We have 7 mana currently. I am going to get Chalice and just play it. So they can't top deck a Cascader, is what this does. We're going to hope to top deck a land and maybe draw a Sundering Titan. So they make tokens off of the Pyromancer. Now, Prismari Command could destroy Chalice, as an example, and kill Karn. We're going to hit Karn down to 1. We untap. Draw an Urza's Mine. I forgot about the Pyromancer, so I probably should have wished for Sundering Titan. Footfalls ticking down. I mean, the good news is we have 7 mana, so we can play just about anything. Just have to draw something to play. And we have Veils, so if we get another Karn Great Creator, we have protection. Karn Liberated. Play Karn. Take out their island. Pass the turn. Okay, we untap. We draw Karn, Great Creator. So they have another basic island, which is unfortunate for us. We're going to uptick. And we play a Karn. Then we downtick. So I can get Wurmcoil Engine here. Or I can get, like, Walking Ballista. I mean, or I can get just Liquimetal Coating. Honestly, I think I'm going to go with the Liquimetal Coating. So, stop on their upkeep. Shut off their island. They cast Footfalls into a Chalice. Okay, they scoop. I think I am going to bring Chalice into the main deck for game 3 here, and I think it's better than Relic. We're not on the play, so it's not as powerful as it could possibly be, but we have precious few things that interact with them, so... This hand is slow. In theory, it's consistent, but it is slow. And they have Blood Moon. Oh, never mind. I did bring in Wilt. Sorry, I'm all over the place right now. This hand's okay, but I'm gonna go to 5. Gonna go to 4. Much better, question mark. Put back Tower, put back Oblivion Stone, and put back Star. We're gonna hope to top deck mine and play a Titan, I guess. Opponent plays a Gemstone Caverns as their first land. We draw Expedition Map, which is possibly our best top deck. You could make an argument for it. Kind of hoping to top deck Chalice now, because Chalice we could play on 0 while using Map to tutor for the last Tron piece. Opponent cracks Misty. Ice kind of throws a little bit of a wrench in our game plan here. They bounce the Expedition Map. We get a Chromatic Star. So play a Tower, play a Map, and play a Star. Pass the turn. Alright, opponent untaps. So I'm thinking their game plan is to fire off a Cascade and then land Moon to try and lock us out. And they would pretty much be successful if that's what they've got. If they have anything suboptimal or less optimal than that, we might have a chance. Them missing a land drop is, I would consider less optimal. Crack Map, get mine. I don't care about them destroying Star. That draws us a card. What did they pitch? Shardless Agent. That might mean they're a little bit desperate. We'll get a Chromatic Sphere. So play a mine, play a sphere. I'm going to immediately sack it for green. We don't need double green ever in this version, and we already have... Alright, we have a Wilt. So we can handle a Blood Moon if that's what they're going for. Pass the turn. Opponent suspends a Crashing Footfalls. We draw a Chromatic Star. So, play a Tower. We're not playing a Forest because we don't want a Sundering Titan our own Forest. I mean, I know we can beat down in 4 turns, so... Alright. Well, we're 2-1. I wish we were 3-0, but, you know, we did fine. We got a little bit lucky. I think my version is still better at beating that particular deck, simply because Surgical Extraction is so backbreaking for them, and Warping Wail is so critical, but, you know, we still did okay. I'll see you guys in round 4. Alrighty, welcome back to round 4, everybody. And, I think this is a mulligan. We are on the play, so we've got that going for us. This is kind of a risky 6. I think I'm going to go to 5. I don't want to keep, like, land cantrips that's not Tron land. I'm going to go to 4. Well, we get to start off land Ancient Stirrings, and hopefully that gets us to where we need to go. This will be a turn 4 Karn Great Creator. I think we keep a hand that looks like this and pray for a second land off of Ancient Stirrings. No second land off Ancient Stirrings! At least we get a cantrip. Pass the turn. Well, technically, if we top deck a land now, the cantrip is better to play into Expedition Map. So our opponent plays Shatter Skull, bolting themselves. This looks like Belcher. Strike it rich. This is 100% a Belcher variant of some kind. Now, if we can get down a Karn Great Creator, fantastic. I mean, technically, it could be like a manaless Dredge variant of some kind. I'm almost certainly going to die, because our hand is far too slow for this. Alright, we finally find a land. Play an Expedition Map. Pass the turn. Okay, opponent plays a Seagate Reborn. And if this is Belcher, we lose, because we won't be able to interact with it prior to Ironcrag Feet. Okay. So at Ironcrag Feet and Charbelcher, so we just die immediately. Let's get a look at their deck list really quick. That is, if Moda doesn't lag completely out. So Blood Moons, Reforge the Souls, you know, the lands that exist only on the backside. Okay, let me double check and see if I can find a deck list for this, because if I can, I'll have a better idea of what their backup plan is. Okay, so they're playing Pact of the Titan Infernal Plunge for like extra ritualness. They have several ways to like turn 1 a Blood Moon, or turn 2 a Blood Moon, easy. Out of the sideboard, they've got Nature's Claim, Veil of Summer, Pyromancer's Ascension, Endurance, Force of Vigor, and Free. Okay, so bring in Wilt. Weather the Storm's not going to do anything, because we'll just get dealt 50 damage at once. It's unlikely we'll have enough life to, you know, get over that amount. So we'll bring in the 2 Wilts. I think we'll drop a Kozilek and a Wurmcoil Engine. Question is, do I want to bring in any of the sideboard wish targets? And I think the answer is no. So a deck like this is one of Tron's worst matchups. Just straight up fast combo. It is very difficult for us to interact with, and in this particular version we do not have, Force of Vigor or Surgical Extraction, which could help out a lot. I could keep this hand just off of Warping Wail, but the odds that we would actually get anywhere is pretty low, so I'm going to mulligan. This is far superior. I'm going to put back Ugin, because I don't think Ugin's going to do that much. But we do have Expedition Map, turn 3 Tron, and we have Warping Wail as backup, so if our opponent has any crazy Ironcrag Feet shenanigans off of one-shot mana, we should be able to counter it. Opponent starts with a Turn Timber Serpentine Wood into a Nature's Claim, which is very disheartening for us, but we do still have Warping Wail. If we can just top deck a tower. Opponent plays a tap land and passes. Another Warping Wail. Inspires a little bit of confidence. Okay, they Manamorphose into red-red. Play a tap land. They play a Strike at Rich. Don't think it's worth it to counter a Strike at Rich. I would basically only counter a Ironcrag Feet at this point. I am going to Warping Wail once to make a token, because if I top deck a land, then I could play Karn Great Creator. I did not top deck a land. So go to combat, attack for 1. Pass the turn. Bala Ged Recovery, picking up Manamorphose. Okay. We untap. We draw Sylvan Scrying, which we cannot cast. Go to combat, attack for 1. Hit our opponent down to 15, pass the turn. They untap. Pyretic Ritual. Ironcrag Feet, so let's go ahead and counter Ironcrag Feet. They play a tap land. We untap and draw an O-Stone, which, while I technically can play it, is almost certainly incorrect. Go to combat. Attack for 1. Yeah, maybe I was supposed to just Warping Wail again to make a second token to play Karn. I play a Blood Moon. Alright, I still need a land. That is not a land. Blood Moon not going to be super relevant here. Because our threat we're building towards is still Karn Great Creator, although if they just have Charbelcher, they have enough mana to activate it. Alright. Well, they had an answer for Expedition Map, and we didn't draw a land in 7 turns, so... that is the downside of playing 17 lands as opposed to the traditional 18 in Tron. So we're 2-2. I feel like we should have pretty handily beat that deck, but we just didn't. So I'll see you guys in round 5. Alright. Round 5, we're on the draw against a Lurrus deck. This does not bode well for us. This hand is not fast enough versus basically any version. This hand might be. So I'm going to put back a Forest. I'm going to keep this hand. I like having 2 threats on the off chance this is a version playing Thoughtseize. Ah, it is Burn. Well, I'm glad I kept the Wurmcoil. They play Goblin Guide. We draw Urza's Tower. And another Urza's Tower. Good old... Natural Tron. Pass the turn. I mean, if this is a hand that's playing Eidolon, we don't have to cast anything into it, at least. Opponent attacks us for 3. We reveal an Oblivion Stone. Take 3, go to 15. Untap. Draw Oblivion Stone. Cycle for green. Get a Relic. Ancient Stirrings. Get Karn, the Great Creator. Play Power Plant. Play Relic. Actually, I probably should have played Tower to not hint that I was on Tron, just in case there was something they can do. They Boros Charm us for a lot. So we're going to play a Wurmcoil Engine, and as long as we dodge a Skullcrack and a Path, we're probably okay. We could still die to Double Bolt. Let me think about this. So I could play Karn, and I could play Trinisphere, but if my opponent top decks any non-land spell, we die. Or any land and has a bolt, we die. I could play Karn, and I could wish for Chalice, but if they have another Boros Charm or Skullcrack, we die. I could play Wurmcoil Engine, and possibly be dead to Double Bolt. I think Wurmcoil Engine is the safest play, because that mitigates almost all of their damage. It's unlikely they'll be able to achieve Delirium. Next turn we could Ulamog all their lands away, or we could play, you know, Karn and get Trinisphere or something, I don't know. Walking Ballista. We could even attack and then Oblivion Stone to blow up the board and have tokens to block. Okay, opponent does not attack. We untap and draw Ancient Stirrings. So play a tower, play Ulamog, nuke our opponent's lands. We're still dead to Double Bolt, but I think this is our best bet. Boros Charm. So we're going to 2. The reason I did this is because if I just attacked with Wurmcoil Engine, my opponent could bolt one of their own threats and prevent us from gaining life and then just kill us on the swing back. But we need to attack to gain life. This at least leaves me with 1 blocker. There were a lot of things we were dead to and got lucky. I think that was the best line, though. Alright, Weather the Storm. Relic kind of has some utility considering our opponent has a bunch of 1-mana spells, but it's also not as great because this is like a creature-heavy burn list. Kozilek is too slow. Ulamog is probably too slow. I think I'm going to put Chalice in the main deck, because setting it on 1, if we can do it early, is pretty good. And as a hedge for that, I'm going to drop a Relic. Do I want to bring in the Wilts? See if I can find a deck list really quick. Because in theory, I think I would cut the Relics for the Wilts. I do not see a Dragon's Rage Channeler burn list. I think I'm going to cut Sundering Titan for a Wilt, and maybe an Oblivion Stone for a Wilt. At the very least, they're going to cycle, but if we have to Wilt an Eidolon, we're going to take damage. Okay, this hand's not keepable. This hand is also not keepable. I will reluctantly keep this hand, and I need to put back, I think it's Blast Zone and Sphere. So I could go to 4. Going to, mulliganing to 5 to Tron is generally not a bad thing. My opponent's gone down to 5. But mulliganing to 5 in Tron is, pretty reasonable against a deck that's not playing Thoughtseize. But going to any less than 5, and you really are dropping huge percentage points. 4 is basically the absolute minimum that I'd want to go. So my opponent's got a Smash to Smithereens. They put a Swift Spear in the grave. They kill our Chromatic Star, which thankfully still lets us draw a card. Opponent does not have a Mishra's Bauble, so I am going to Warping Wail to exile that Dragon's Rage Channeler. I do not want them to have any more free looks at anything. Us not having green mana for Ancient Stirrings, very unfortunate. Us not having Tron or consistency tools or really anything we can play, also very unfortunate. We're going to have to hope that our opponent's hand is super awkward, like maybe they're holding Path to Exiles and lands. They did not put Luris in there. We draw a Wurmcoil Engine, that'd be nice if we could ever cast it. Opponent cracks Wooded Foothills. For Sacred Foundry tapped. They may sack Sunbaked Canyon. They bolt our face. Okay. I think if that was my opponent's plan, was a bolt, and they don't have a Smash to Smithereens or a Skullcrack, it was better to put Luris in their hand that turn. They probably will this turn. We need basically anything, and that counts. So play a Sphere. Sack Sphere for green. Get a tower. Ancient Stirrings, get a power plant, and things are looking up. Play power plant, pass the turn. So opponent may have land Luris Monastery Swiftspear. We could follow up with like Karn, exile Luris. I don't want to run out Wurmcoil Engine first. Especially if my opponent doesn't have a land to play Swiftspear off of Luris here. I would much rather than bolt a Karn from this position. Alright, not only is this Tron, it is Karn. And then if we get another Urza's Mine, it is Urza Mine Tron in Tron with Karn, aka Tron. Okay, we untap and draw Chromatic Star. Exile Sacred Foundry. Opponent floats white. Past a second main. Aha! Okay. Play another Karn. Get rid of Sacred Foundry. Play Chromatic Star. Cycle it for green. Ancient Stirrings. Take a Wurmcoil Engine. Rest to the bottom. Play Sanctum. Pass the turn. So next turn, I say depending on what we draw. I mean, we're probably just playing Wurmcoil Engine, especially if my opponent misses a land drop. They play a Goblin Guide. They attack us directly. We reveal a Wilt off the top of our deck. Okay, so we draw a Wilt. Start by cycling Wilt. Get more information. We get Yavimaya. Play Yavimaya. Nuke our opponent's only land. Play Wurmcoil Engine. Because if they miss a land drop, they won't be able to path. If they have a land drop, they'll only be able to path. And if they have a land drop and they path, we get a forest. Okay, they did not have it. Yeah, Karn blowing up all their lands. Normally Karn's not very good against burn. Because your opponent does so many things in a single turn. I think they kept a bad hand. But let's open up our treasure chest. Mix him, we got a treasure chest. And a Wurmcoil. And promo Dennick. Is Dennick worth anything? Let's see. Is it the showcase version? It is the showcase version, which is worth nothing on Moto. Unfortunate. All right. So talking about this deck, I think I did a pretty good job of covering this in the very, very long, like, pre-game discussion that I did, so I don't think I need to hammer much home. I would say that most of my predictions that I made pre-league are what we saw during the league. Relic was surprisingly useful, especially versus the mill deck. You know, it wasn't a complete wash, but we're also playing against different decks more commonly than just the Surgical Extraction version. And other than the Crashing Footfalls deck, Relic was in general better because, like, versus humans, versus burn, Surgical Extraction is really bad because it doesn't do anything. Relic, at the very least, is like a think twice. You just cycle it. Relic does have a sort of combo with Karn Great Creator that I haven't called out yet. So if you play Relic and you exile your grave, if something happened to make it into your grave that you really need in the current matchup, like let's say you're against an aggro deck and you played Ensnaring Bridge and they blew up your Ensnaring Bridge. So you sack Relic to itself, you exile the grave, then you can Karn wish for Ensnaring Bridge again because Karn can wish for things out of exile. So there's that, right? And in that regard, I think Relic is good. I actually really like this list. I didn't do as well with it as I normally would have, but I'm going to blame getting very, very distracted in the middle of this league on part of that. I'm going to blame a little bit of inexperience with this version because I'm used to playing my other one, and they do play a little bit differently. Things that I like about this version in particular, I like the expanded wishboard. I like the inclusion of more threats in the main deck. I think I've been too laser focused on how to counter bad matchups, and I've been sacrificing stuff, by stuff I mean win percentage points, by doing that. Whereas like this version is probably better in the majority of cases where you're playing Tron, you just get Tron and play something more consistently. I actually really like Oblivion Stone right now over the All Is Dust. Because Oblivion Stone you can play in a very heavy Blood Moon meta in the main deck. It's good versus aggro decks. It's good versus Blood Moon. It's not as good versus aggro decks as it used to be because aggro decks have been getting faster. And I think if you were going to start playing Modern, this version would be less expensive than the version that I was playing, simply because Force of Vigor is so absurdly expensive. And I think that like there's a few budget substitutions you can make. If you wanted to play a version of Tron and you're very far off the version that I was playing, I would suggest you start with something similar to this, as close to this as you can get it. The wishboard can be tuned to a particular metagame if like your local store or the decks you're running into frequently. It's very, very easy to tune the wishboard. There are other inclusions you can make. If you don't run into a lot of particular aggro, you could drop Weather the Storm, you could play Veil of Summers. If you play more control decks or counter-oriented decks, you could drop a Relic out of the main deck and play another Forest, which wouldn't be that bad. You could drop an Oblivion Stone for a third Warping Wail. You could move an Oblivion Stone to the sideboard. And that's another thing that I like about this version. So this version has Skysovereign and Sundering Titan in the sideboard as artifact threats, right? But in the event, like, I go up against a control deck, I can put a Wurmcoil Engine in the side and put a Veil of Summer in the main deck. And then I can still wish for Wurmcoil Engine if I need it. And then, you know, I have access to Veil of Summer. Just stuff like that. Like, I can make swaps between main deck and sideboard because of the number of artifacts that I'm running. So, like, let's say that I was playing against Dredge with Alpine Moon, right? I have two options. I could either put Tormod's Crypt and Grafdigger's Cage in the main deck and then expect to be able to draw one of my pieces of Grave Hate. Or I could swap, like, Wilton to deal with the Alpine Moon or whatever I was worried about, and I could take out, like, a Relic. I probably wouldn't do that, but I could take out, like, an Oblivion Stone. And then that way I have a Wrath I could wish for out of the side while also having an additional, you know, like counter Tron hate card in the main deck. Like something like that. And that's a very contrived example, but like, I hope that I'm communicating the point that I'm trying to make. So, if I were to play this list, if I was going to adapt this list, and I probably will, just because I played the other list for so many times in a row, and I think people kind of understand what I was doing and why. I think I would put... I would either go down to 2 Oblivion Stone or 1 Wurmcoil Engine, and probably play a third Warping Wail. That would be the first change I would make. And I might consider dropping the Walking Ballista out of the main deck, simply because we have one in the side, and I usually prefer Walking Ballista as a wishboard target. And like those are like some of those are the first place that I feel like this deck would need its numbers tuned. But all in all, I think this is a very solid list. Mixum, thank you so much for being a Patreon supporter, and thank you so much for being the biggest Patreon supporter by a single dollar. But I do appreciate it. Thank you for, you know, giving me a reason to play something different than what I was playing. And it's a very fine list. It's a good suggestion. And I hope that some of what was happening, some of what happened during this league is relevant to your specific game plan, because I know you said that you were playing a Tron list that didn't have surgicals or something like that, and you wanted to see kind of how Relic would work. It had been a while since I played it, and this definitely helped remind me of some of its merits. So I really appreciate that. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm sorry about the lack of content. There will be a continuation of the lack of content. I will get to the rest of the deck suggestions and Patreon deck suggestions next week. I shouldn't overlap any Patreon deck suggestions with next month. Everybody the 2 of you that submitted the deck lists should get them in before the end of October, this being one of them. So I don't have to be too worried about that, I don't think. But anyway, you're all wonderful human beings. Thank you so much for watching. Stay positive. Keep trying to win, and I hope that this was informative for you guys. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye! Hey, just wanted to give a shout out to my patrons for the month of September. You guys have been a huge help, greatly supporting the channel and allowing me to acquire new cards. And if you want to have your name in this list and get a shout out at the end of the video, there's a link to the Patreon in the description down below. Thank you.